We are live here on Plus One EXP's Roll for Content channel. My name is Tony the Sciortino. I'm Chief Alchemist here at Plus One EXP, and we're a weird little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard, and skincare alchemy, and the Bardic College of Content Creation. Our hope and desire is to help amazing designers find great players who love their games and help amazing players find great designers whose games they can love. We do that in a lot of different ways, but one of my favorite ones is sitting down with the creators of games and talking to them about their creative process, about the projects they're working on, and what got them into design, and letting you ask them questions also. So if you're out there watching live and you've got questions as we go through today's episode, please drop them in. Today's Prestige class is with Fleur and Chelsea. And I meant to ask beforehand because I had to do it the other day in the video without asking. I'm going to try to pronounce your last name, and we're going to see how it goes. Sciortino?
Sciortino.
Sciortino. Dang it. Dang it. I was like, I knew there's going to be a blend on the front end. How am I going to do? So Sciortino, which it's been an absolute blast to work with y'all over the last little bit. Just FYI for anybody who's watching, we have done some sponsored content for one of the games we're going to talk about. The interview today is just something we do with any creator who we are able to schedule. So this is not sponsored content. I can say all kinds of mean things. No, I'm just kidding. We're always honest in everything we do, but for full transparency, we have done some other content specifically for Flabbergasted, which is one of the things we're going to talk about in today's interview. And I would love to have people go check out. There's a link in the description. And I will also drop it in the chat here on Twitch in just a second. But let's get to know our two guests for today, because I'm super excited to talk about a lot of things with them, including the game. So, Fleur, why don't you start? Go ahead and tell us who you are, what you do, where people can find you online.
Yeah, so I'm Fleur. I'm one of the two co-creators of Wanderer's Tome, which is a tabletop role-playing publishing house I started off with my sister. I am by trade an illustrator and graphic designer, and I handle most of our just the design aspect of our games and the book layout and kind of publishing. I don't know, I'm really into tabletop role-playing games and narrative-driven games, and so we wanted to work together towards publishing this kind of content ourselves.
Awesome. Well, let's kick it over to Chelsea. Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm Chelsea, the other half of Wanderer's Tome. Well, by trade, I am an architect, which is a bit random, but I've always loved storytelling and writing, and have recently first started making murder mysteries for Wanderer's Tome, and now we're making our first tabletop role-playing game. I just, like Fleur said, really love tabletop role-playing games, love video games, board games.
In case we didn't mention, we're sisters as well. I don't.
Oh yeah, yes. We always have to mention that.
We're the rare pair of sisters who actually love working together and spending time together.
See each other all the time.
Let's actually talk about that specifically, just to start. What got y'all started? As sisters, is this your first time to collaborate on a large project? Is this something y'all have always done? Tell us a little bit about how y'all decided, hey, it would be a good idea for us to work together. Because I know sub-siblings, that's really easy for. Other people, it's really challenging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, as sisters, really close. We've always been, we have the same hobbies, same interests, same friends, same everything. So
we had the same hair and glasses for the longest time. Right now it's different, but
same glasses.
So that's true.
And well, to be honest, we didn't work for a while because I was busy killing myself in architecture school. But every year we used to do a game jam together and make a video game in 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And we worked well together for those in 48 hours, sorry. And then we started making murder mysteries just for our friends. We started writing and creating those together because buying a murder mystery was too simple. We had to make our own from scratch. And we then kind of realized, hey, we kind of have this together. We have the skills we need to make our own games. Let's go for it. We work well together. We actually like each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been working on projects with other friends for a number of years now. Pretty much since I was 18 years old, I've been doing things like comic books and small video games with friends, and anything I can think of a project to work on, I would do with friends. But I think what you're saying, I think because you're so preoccupied with having to finish your becoming an architect and then working there as an architect, then realizing you hate this. Like it took a while, and then I'm like, no, it's not that like you know what it is you really like and what to do. Like we should work together.
Awesome. So y'all, I didn't even know about the video game jams. That's awesome. So y'all were doing these video game jams. Just loved working together. Each were doing your own things also too. And then you guys designed murder mysteries, which I loved discovering when y'all first reached out to me. I'm going to go ahead and pop them up. These are over on the Wanderer's Tome site, and just a little bit I'll pop it in the chat here also too. But the art on them is captivating. But you guys have 2 released murder mysteries, which I feel like is such a RPG. Like they're very much self-contained LARPs set around a dinner table in a lot of ways. And I just don't hear people talking about them as much, but I was in love with murder mysteries when I was in high school. So we did a murder mystery show every year for our high school theater troupe. I would also host them at my birthday parties because I was that kind of nerd. So I'm a big fan of murder mysteries and was so excited to see them. And again, really, really great, captivating visual design, very different than Flabbergasted. But what got y'all started with murder mysteries?
We started off because it's been a progression. So we started off as being quite like video game kind of nerds, into like more like RPG kind of stuff, but we never used to touch like the role playing, the D&D side of things. We're like, oh, we're nerds, we're not that kind of nerdy. Until of course we did actually eventually stumble in and discover tabletop role playing games. And then we're like, okay, fine. We're going to be like those kind of nerds. But at least we're not one of those weirdos with elf ears running around in a forest and casting fireballs at each other. And until we also discovered we're really into LARPing.
It's always, I'm not that kind of nerd until you try it and you realize, oh man, I'm totally
now we're
nerd.
Full on nerd. And before we went to full on LARPs, we discovered murder mysteries. And that was like our first kind of... It wasn't too much. It wasn't like a full-on international LARP where you spend 48 hours in a forest. Now we have done that, but back then, murder mysteries was like her gateway into LARPing.
Yeah, I should also say that like LARPing is not a thing in Malta, where me and Chelsea are from. It's such a small community and a small island that there's just like no LARPs unless like you just do it yourself with a couple of friends. And we also don't have any forests here. Like there's not a lot of places to do this.
No beach LARP.
No beach LARP, sure. So yeah, the closest thing we could do was murder mysteries, like little self-contained stories in your living room that we could do together for over like an afternoon. And yeah, we started off doing the typical murder mysteries, like murder at an 80s prom, or murder, like, I don't know, cowboy western murder mysteries. And because we were like so into role-playing game, we wanted like deeper experiences that weren't just like these like cheesy, I don't know, I guess like cheesy murder mysteries, yeah. So we started writing our own stuff with a bit more depth, something that played a lot to our own interests and allowed us to like combine our love for like role-playing games and murder mysteries and LARPing and that kind of stuff.
Love it. Tell us, I know, like, I'll just, the descriptions on both of these are so good, and they do not sound like your typical one. Like Murder at Godgrave's Keep is, Sanat sits at the border between, I'm going to murder these names also too, Kelkara and Badam, and the constant war between the two nations is gradually turning Sanat into a lawless battleground. Sitting in the middle of this battleground is Godgrave Keep, whose presence has kept neighboring villages out of harm's way. For the past few years, the peace has been threatened by a group of outlaws, the Iron Wolves of Sanat. An opportunity for peace between these two factions has emerged, a marriage between Lord Godgrave's daughter and the Iron Wolf's warlord's son. However, Sanat is a dangerous place, and a single death threatens to tip the uneasy balance once and for all. So I love it. Like it's such a different setup. And I think my kind of immediate initial questions is, has anyone played these online during quarantine? Because that was like my number one question is if anybody has ever, like, if you know if anybody's played these online instead of in person, because I would love it to get one of these together, but I don't know that I have enough local friends to be able to do it.
Well, yeah, each of these games we included, we include the guide on how to play online and all the assets that you'd need to play online. So far, we know of groups who have played In the Shadow of the Lord, which is the vampire murder mystery. We have some groups who have played online. We've played murder mysteries online with our friends. Like it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have to have y'all come back on sometime and play one of the games with us, because I think it'd be an absolute blast to get a bunch of people together and maybe even set up a little Discord in the background and just play through it.
In the Shadow of the Lord, it's perfect for Halloween.
Awesome. So we can chat more about it afterwards. But no, it's such a cool intro. Michael Harmon is over in the chat also too, has commented both about the art for Flabbergasted and how amazing it looks, and how awesome the covers for both of the two murder mysteries are, as I popped them up also too. Michael's an artist also. It's very high praise. I love Michael's art style. He's got a keen eye. But let's talk a little bit about Flabbergasted also. So this is the first RPG you're designing. Tell us a little bit about what Flabbergasted is and kind of the elevator pitch for Flabbergasted.
Do you want to go, Fleur? Okay. It's always a fight over who's going to give the elevator pitch. But so Flabbergasted is a rules light comedic tabletop role-playing game set in the Roaring 20s. So it's very comedic and is full of lighthearted adventures and draws a lot of inspiration from mostly Jeeves and Wooster. So that's going to give you an idea for how this is going to be played. Other inspirations are like Fawlty Towers and Blackadder. And in this game, you're going to take on the role of either an aristocrat or the help, a well-to-do, or a bohemian. And together, you and your friends are going to create a social club. You're going to go through all manner of adventures together, and through that, you're going to cultivate a reputation. And along the way, you might uncover secret societies, and
just in general, get up to all manner of mischief and shenanigans and misadventures.
Awesome. I've gotten to play twice now, once on our channel and then our friends, which Sam ran, and it got very dark, which was hilarious. I mean, it wasn't hilarious content. It was hilarious how dark it got, and it was a very fun take on it. And then I got to play over on Weave the Tale also too. They invited me to come over and play there, and had an absolute blast playing there, and got to try out a couple of the different archetypes. And I love how clean and how simple it was to pick up. It was, and we talked about this a little bit, Fleur, I know when we talked at the end of our actual play, it's got a lot of very similar mechanical elements to Blades in the Dark. Obviously, the setting and everything else are wildly different. The flavor, the tones and other things else. But anybody who's played Blades, this actually felt like a very streamlined and simpler version of Blades. But one of my favorite parts was actually the social club aspect and how clean of a narrative focus that gave you. It's like people might think they're like Crews and Blades in some ways, but they have no real significant initially mechanical importance. You don't get abilities or anything else like that. But my biggest love of them was they gave you such a strong narrative reason that all these people are together, and a real clear kind of insight from the moment you started about what the players were going to be up to and what they were interested in, which I think a lot of games, especially newer systems, really struggle with. Is like, okay, we got together, now what do we do? Y'all did a ton of work to help people running the game know what they're up to, but even the Crews, just from a player standpoint, made it very clear to me to be like, here's our common interest. So where did that aspect come from? Because it would have been easy to be like, hey, like we've got this, like Roaring 20s vibe, and we're doing all these things, we're just going to do stuff. At what point did y'all decide to include the social club aspect?
That was the last kind of like missing piece that we had in the game. Our jumping off point was kind of like our love of period dramas. I loved like end of last year, Bridgerton came out, and I was kind of like obsessed with it. And then I went deep dive into like reliving all of my favorite period dramas. And so like at that point we were building up that we wanted to do like a 1920s setting. We also like discovered Jeeves and Wooster, like some of the novels, and I thought they were like quite fun, like really funny. And we started getting the idea of Flabbergasted there. And then the last missing piece for the social club actually came from when I was watching Around the World in 80 Days, the one with Jackie Chan, on a random night browsing on Netflix. And just the idea clicked to me when the whole setup for Around the World in 80 Days is this guy who is part of a social club, and his other club members give him a dare, and they tell him, "I dare you to go around the world in 80 days," and that's like sets off in his adventure. And at that moment, I'm like, oh my god, pause the movie. I have to go write this down. Like this is how everyone's going to be tied together. Social clubs. We're going to give challenges to each others, and that's how going to like foster rivalry with other clubs and camaraderie within your own. And like, yeah, things like really fell into place after that.
Awesome. Just a reminder, if anybody's out there watching right now and you have questions or comments about Flabbergasted, please drop them in the chat wherever you're watching. I would love to be able to ask them and chat about them. So if you have insights, thoughts, questions, please check it out. But let's talk a little bit about the visual design for the game, because that's another huge aspect that I think is absolutely amazing and made it such a clear. Like when you send it to me, there's lots of people who are like, "Hey, do you want to feature this game?" And they have like a piece of key art. And lots of times it's very simple. There was this very beautiful image that y'all hit me with, as well as the early playtest package, just gorgeously laid out. We'll pop it up on the screen in just 1 second. But tell me a little bit about some of the artists you worked with and about some of the visual styling that y'all created for the game.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, like I've been working as an illustrator and a graphic designer for pretty much like most of my adult life now. So this game was never gonna look bad. Wasn't gonna let that happen. And when it came to illustrators, just because of I've worked a lot within like as an illustrator, and so I've been to a lot of like comic conventions. I have quite a lot of like pool of artist friends, and so it was quite easy and straightforward for us to pick out who we wanted to work with immediately. Yeah, we worked with Andy Bennett for the interior art. He did most of the art on the inside. I think it's like a perfect fit. I love how like streamlined his characters look. I think it fits very well for like the stylistic sensibilities of the 1920s. It also feels like very like just fresh and funny. Like he manages to capture like the comedic spirit with the art as well. The first one he did was actually the club art piece, where I'm like, they're in a social club, chaos is happening, go crazy, do what you want. And then we worked with Ricardo Bessa for the cover. And I mean, he's just like a very phenomenal illustrator, and I really wanted to see his take on Flabbergasted. He mostly does a lot of like fantasy art, so I think this was quite a fun like challenge for him to do.
Awesome. And yes, there were sudden trumpets a moment ago, Matt Stew Drinker. That's because I was trying to get the video set up. It's absolutely amazing little intro video. I'm going to try to show it right now. I think everything's set up to work properly. It did start in the background just a second ago in another section. But I'm going to pop it up and see if it works right now for y'all to be able to watch, because it gives you such a great visual sense of what the game is all about. Let's try it out. I mentioned to y'all right before we went live, y'all did such an amazing job of like show, don't tell on the page. Very clearly communicating a lot of the visual pop. But it's such a great and well put together video to be able to just kind of showcase a lot of what the game is all about. And so it was something like very rarely am I like, send me your video because I want to show it in the middle of an interview. But I think it's such a great explanation of what and how the game works. What were some of the kind of, as you were building this, you mentioned the social club being one of the last elements that kind of fell into place. We talked a little bit about some of the inspiration that led up to it. What were some of the design challenges as you've gone through the game?
Designing it was actually quite a straightforward experience. Like I feel like things just fell into place very quickly. We had like the archetypes kind of, for example, like haven't changed since the start of our
First playtest, yeah, they've been the same throughout.
Scene cues were there from the beginning. I mean, that was like a challenge to write then like 15 scene cues. Like we started off with like 5 in the beginning, but mechanically, it's actually remained quite the same. The only biggest thing were like the detail and depth that there were to the social clubs, because before we always had the social club, but we didn't even start off with a social club sheet. It was only after our first playthrough that players were like, oh, I want to customize the social club and I want to, I don't know, get to explore it and stuff. So that then after that we got a sheet for it, and we wanted to bring in that element of like something that's like I really enjoy in video games, like when you have your own home base and you get to go back and you see the trophies you've collected and the customizational stuff. And so like we wanted to capture that in our social club. Other than that, mechanically, like we just did more additions over time, but the foundation remained the same for most of the
adjustments. Yeah, the social club was the biggest change. And once we figured out we need, a sheet, and we need to be able to give players the chance to upgrade their social club, and through upgrading add new members, and it feels more like a home. Once that was done, everything kind of clicked into like fell into place.
Since it's not a particularly like a crunchy system, like it's not very numbers heavy, like testing it was just a matter of like getting people to use the scene cues, and if they worked well, we could we kept them in. If they didn't, we swapped them out. But number wise or that kind of like it worked pretty early on.
Awesome. Tell us what is each of your favorite archetype to play? Like I know that's like asking what your favorite job is, but when you sit down to play, what's the one you're always most excited to play, and what's your favorite scene cue for that archetype?
I
want to load up.
Well, just based on the playtests that we've had, I've played the aristocrat way too often. I just love. I always love playing, the complete opposite of who I am. So I love being a huge snob. More often than not, an elderly woman. very
what's her name? Maggie Smith.
Yeah, Maggie Smith in Downton Abbey. Very unapologetic and insulting to everyone. I really enjoyed playing the aristocrat. I just remember, I'm sure there are going to be other scene cues that I'll think of later, but I remember using "Don't You Know Who I Am?" I think that's what it's called. The name dropping. I would use that all the time as soon as I could, because it just fits with, this kind of snobby aristocrat character. But the other archetypes they're all very fun. You can make them very fun.
My favorite is probably the help. Like it's the one I wanted to play the most. I just love the kind of like being the secretly competent one. It's just such a classic trope that I really like. Like I just love playing a Jeeves type character. Although I have played it as well in like an opposite way, which is a bit more like sinister and menacing. And probably like a scene cue I like in that is Devil in the Details, which is the art of the subtle sabotage. Like loosening enough stitches here, putting a bit too much of an ingredient in this pot, and causing some chaos, like ripple effect down the line.
Love that. No, I had a blast. Like I said, I got to play. The well-to-do as I played a gentleman inventor who was very much about show and not about inventing. And then I got to play the help. And I've got a question that we talked about in advance, but I'm going to ask Matt Stewdrinker's question first. And that's, what's your favorite flaw to play? Matt wants to know. Like, do you have a favorite flaw? Because when you're making your character, you pick your archetype, you assign your kind of stat points in your characteristics, and then you pick a flaw in addition to that. So do you all have a particular flaw y'all like to play?
For me, it's just ghastly gossip.
Ghastly gossip. I was going to say the same thing.
Gossiping is so much fun in this. There are some scene cues with gossiping.
Yeah.
It's such a good way to create really funny stories.
Well, and
I really like playing with flaws with characters though. Like the more there's something that the GM game master can pick on, like just the more fun it is.
Yeah, I've played with the Snoop, as a flaw. Very fun too. I really enjoyed writing the flaws. I remember.
I actually really loved that there was both a flaw and a dilemma context for this, because I like the fact that it potentially makes like flaws like a direct character thing. Dilemma's a narrative piece that you kind of build in. It's like, this is what your character thinks about a lot and what they're mostly concerned with. The flaws and action that they engage in a lot of the time, but it created this really interesting tension of having two things of like, this is what I'm worried about, and my flaw may play into that, or it may run counter to that, and a number of other things, but it gave you a lot of clear player direction between those two things in your background, as well as, I think, it gave the GM plenty. I'm somebody who started role playing with a game called GURPS, and GURPS, you get disadvantages and you pick from a list, and the more disadvantages you take, the more positive attributes you can buy with your point pool. And so I'm always somebody who's like, disadvantages in play absolutely give you a lot of clarity and a lot of things for the GM to kind of pull in and work on and work through the narrative. And I love how simply y'all incorporated this. GURPS character creation can take hours of point perfection. So it's very different than the, I'm going to sit down for 10 or 15 minutes and max and not knock out a character. I mean, I think the first time we made a character, it took me probably 20 minutes of reading and checking and other stuff like that. The second time it took me 5. It's a very, very easy process.
Once you have the character concept straight in your head, like it's very quick to put down on paper.
Yeah. But we talked about this a little bit, and like I said, I wanted to bring it back up. Y'all are playing a lot with classist kind of concepts and tropes, which is a huge part of a lot of the Juicer and Weaves, Faulty Towers, Black Adder, all these different things. Those classist tropes come in there a lot, and the European perception of those and the American perception of those can oftentimes be very different. But there's also a lot of overlap too. What were some of the challenges y'all had in creating in that space?
Well, when we first came up with this theme, we were obviously immediately conscious of the class system, but the crux of this game as such was to parody this time period and the class system.
It takes a very irreverent approach to it.
It's our intended tone of the game. That's why we drew inspiration from other parodies like Jeeves and Wooster and Blackadder and Faulty Towers. You don't feel bad for the help or anything. He's actually usually the more competent one.
Right.
And the classes, we also made sure, mechanically speaking, they're intended to be equal. So let's say the help class is no way inferior to the aristocracy class. And so much so, more often than not, the help is more useful. So this also doubles down that idea that we're kind of, parodying and maybe
poking fun at it as well.
Poking fun at it as well. On top of this, though, we also know the differences between how we
as Europeans,
how we as Europeans see these classes and Americans see it differently. We were conscious of that, and we have a sensitivity reader, so I'm sure.
Yeah, because one of the beautiful things that I think it's very clear in the art. Like there is essentially, if this is the 1920s, y'all are engaging in colorblind casting, right? You're saying racism is not a thing here, but I think a lot of times because in America, classism is so very intrinsically tied in with racism. That's one of the real specific challenges. So talk to me a little bit more about who's doing some of your sensitivity work. Because I think that's an interesting, lots of people forget that aspect of things. There are people who do that. So tell me about what the choice was to include that person on your team and what that process has been like.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really have the intention in the beginning to get one on, especially for at least for the quick start guide, it wasn't. But when we did have an editor kind of point out that, for example, some of the certain language choices, especially when it comes to, for example, be calling someone master or whatever, whereas in Europe it has.
She's American, our editor, basically.
Yeah. It has different connotations in America, so they were like, okay, we do really need to get double down on this and get someone to check it out. Our editor is someone who specializes in history, right? History research and deals more with race. But then we told her please make sure. For us, classism was the biggest thing, because at least when it comes to race and gender or just general inclusivity. That's what we were going for. This is an alternate version of the 1920s where everyone is welcome.
Everything's diverse.
You can pick and choose sort of the kind of political landscape you want it to be. We don't as a rule we say everyone is welcome. And then it's up to the players to play how they want to. So like I have had done like some weird playthroughs where we still keep in, for example, like women's suffrage, the suffragette movement, but then not when it comes to race. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But I mean, like I said, we take a bit of like an irreverent approach to it.
Yeah, and I do like the fact, like, I mean, anytime anybody's brought it up, and y'all, like, we talked about it after our actual play a little bit. One of the things first, before I go to that, I love Amber also too. I think she's phenomenal. So shout out to the Space Jammer. If y'all aren't following Amber online, please do. Yeah. That's your editor. Their work is absolutely amazing, and she does a phenomenal job of bringing in a lot of those conversations. So just shout out.
Yes,
it was great to work with.
Also too, but it came up, and one of the things I've loved about even engaging with y'all, like I remember like we played it, and like y'all were still getting feedback, still doing a lot of things, and we played with one playtest packet, and I had mentioned the script change mechanic because there's such this great cinematographic style of play, cinematic style of play, and I just mentioned it, and then I saw when y'all sent me the version 2, like y'all had included it as an optional safety tool. So I've loved how, even watching in real time for me, how y'all have gotten feedback from play testers, incorporated things like that in, continued to have those conversations all throughout development. And so like I said, I think people who have questions about that, curiosity about that, I would encourage people to look at what you're doing, and look at some of those conversations, because I think that self-awareness and that inclusivity is such an integral part of it. And depending on where you're from, it can be hard to deconstruct some of those pieces. But I love the game as a space where people can have a good time just playing, but also be doing some of that deconstruction work and having a good time with that in the same moment. And so I like I said, I think it's a really important conversation, really important question. I'm sure it'll continue to be an important conversation and question for y'all also too. But like I said, I absolutely loved watching y'all take feedback in real time from players and from our team and from other people also too.
That's one of the nice things about actually putting a game up on Kickstarter and having the development process be so public, which is that we can get a lot of feedback of people, see what they want more of. I also love like certain people who have like shown like they're like very big fans, like big supporters of our project, the references to them in the book and sneaking them in and characters, and it's one of like my favorite parts, like putting in like hidden Easter eggs in books.
The community development process is absolutely one of my favorite parts about the crowdfunding process and about playtesting, about everything else that you do as you do game designs. Like sitting in a room by myself and designing a game isn't fun at all. Like playing games with people and then taking stuff from that, working it into the game, and that process is so great. Y'all have been developing this game through a very interesting time in the history of the world. It's your first RPG. Tell us what it was like. It's, like I said, this is your first game, so you don't have a comparison, but what was it like to start to generate this game in the middle of the pandemic and everything else? Did that impact the way y'all did development? I mean, like you said, Malta's a small island, so locally I know that all of the island countries I know have done a much better job with COVID and other things than large organizations. I don't know how Malta did, but it's been a very different time to be doing a lot of that stuff. So what was it like to kind of develop this process at a distance and in this time?
Well, I feel like it hasn't affected us too much when it came to Flabbergasted.
I actually think it was almost a benefit, to be honest, because the reason we did this is because we spent so much time at home, because you were working remotely. I was at that point. I was at that point forcibly had to go into freelance because a company closed down during the pandemic, so I had to double down on freelance. And I think it's because we enjoyed so much kind of having the freedom to work from home and at our own pace, that we're like, okay, we should try and do this full time. Let's see what we can make with this time that we have. I don't think
I feel like it's more, it affected our murder mysteries because we released those at the worst time.
Yes, that's true.
Horrible timing, but we were like, it's finished. Let's just put it
up, whatever happens. Yeah.
We released our first one as soon as the pandemic hit.
And distance is not a problem between us. Even if we had to quarantine separately at home, I mean,
even when people weren't really going out, in Malta we could always go to each other's houses
Yeah. We're a 5-minute car drive away, so
me and Fleur always met. It didn't affect. I don't feel like it affected our role-playing game at all. Luckily.
We did have to more playtesting online, but
yeah.
So like we already talked about, y'all are in the middle of the funding process. Y'all have already funded, so congratulations. You're about 3 times your base funding goal. You've unlocked a lot of stretch goals. 11 days to go, so we're certainly going to see that continue to get bigger. What are some of the things y'all have been most excited about as you have kind of reached some of those higher stretch goals?
Making the book really fancy, adding gold foil and ribbons, and just improving the quality of wherever we can. Like that's something that we want to like pump.
Yeah, we definitely want to add a lot more pages if we can, and we already have added quite a bit. Like Fleur was very excited about doing her
the fashion guide,
illustrated fashion guide that was unlocked.
That's a part that I'm really looking forward to doing, because I love the costuming and fashion aspect of like period dramas and history. So that's gonna be really fun.
It's been really fun to see if people are getting very excited and suggesting stretch goals. And now we're every day trying to see how to incorporate their ideas, especially if they weren't ones we thought of.
We did just unlock the manor. I have to update the graphic.
The
manor stretch goal, which is along with the main city that we have in the game, Peccadillo. We now unlocked the manor, which is going to be, it comes with illustrations, some characters, story hooks that you can incorporate into your game. So yeah, that's quite a big like chunk added to the game.
Love it.
We're looking at other future stretch goals. I'm not sure. I think we're going to look into doing a DM screen as well. I don't want to.
That's
overpromise.
It's high up, but for sure.
Since it was our first campaign, like I would have loved to do things like custom dice and dice pouches, and I don't know, there's like everything branded with Flabbergasted. But first campaign, trying to keep it like minimal, things that we know we can deliver. So yeah.
Awesome. Like I said, I've had an absolute blast just kind of following along. I love that I got to play it a number of times in a number of different situations and check stuff out. Lots of times I haven't had that opportunity in the past, so it's been very cool to see a lot of that. If you had to think of some advice like that you would give yourselves 6 months ago or a year ago as you were starting to think about this process, what's the number one piece of advice you would have given your past self?
I'm not sure. I think it's I don't know. It's going quite well. I wouldn't really change that much.
Well, obviously, in hindsight, since it's doing well, I would have loved to have added more things, more add-ons, stuff like that. But
as regards to
everything
in the game and
hindsight.
how it's been how the response has been, it's been going quite well. So
maybe we could have done marketing like for our next game. I definitely would love to start marketing earlier. You definitely want to have as many people as possible following a Kickstarter page. Something. But overall, we're very happy with how things are going, especially for our first product.
I think we probably have more advice after the Kickstarter campaign ends, because then that's when the stuff like you actually have to deliver on things, and we'll be like, no, you should have anticipated.
Maybe afterwards I'll say no add-ons. In the
No. Yourself right now would say more add-ons. Yourself in 5 or 6 months will say no, this is fine. This is great. No, and I think that's the next question. Like, obviously, you're in the middle of this game. You're in the middle of the funding process. You have to deliver. But most designers I know are already thinking about what's the next thing we would love to try to do. What's the thing we're looking forward to? We oftentimes can't help ourselves. So, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to trying your hand at or messing around with in the future? What are some of the ideas you're most excited about?
We want to keep making more tabletop role-playing games, and like we have an idea for one that kind of uses the same bones of Flabbergasted, but just new setting, a little bit of a denser world, and just more like fantastical elements to it. But I don't think we can say much about it because it's still very early stages. But we really want to explore just more narrative-driven games, not necessarily like just only tabletop role-playing, but even maybe like more like narrative one shots, maybe that use like card system or
yeah, I would love to even develop a board game in the future. But for now, for sure, we're going to continue making tabletop role-playing games, and just because it's our style and what we love to do, we're going to keep making kind of comedic and rules light games, possibly period specific, different periods of time, but yeah. We
definitely want to keep going into the narrative space. Oh yeah, we have a lot of ideas. We have a document with just like somewhere about like 15 different tabletop role-playing game ideas, and the only development they have is just like one keyword.
I have that, and then I also have like 6 half-developed games, and
yeah, but this document is just like one word in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
just like one of them is just Animal Crossing. I'm like, what is that? That's really a game.
She's like, Animal Crossing is a role-playing game. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like,
I don't know. Well, we just write some random words sometimes.
Awesome.
But we have one that's kind of half developed.
Awesome, love
Hopefully next year.
Well, I can't wait to see more. I can't wait to actually get Flabbergasted into our hands and be able to play it around the table here at our house also too. I would encourage anybody who wants to go check it out. You can go to ttrpg.link/flabbergastedgame. It'll take you right there. It's also in the description if you're watching this later on Facebook or YouTube. And I'm going to go ahead and drop it in the chat one more time. Fleur and Chels, if go ahead and tell people again where they can find you online if they want to follow the work that y'all are doing.
So we're on Wanderer's Tome on Facebook, on Twitter we're Wanderers_Tome, and on Instagram we're Wanderers.tome, because we love all punctuation here. We don't discriminate. And then you can find us on wanderers-tome.com, and you can see more about our game there.
I love it. I did, when I was looking on Twitter earlier, I saw that there is somebody with Wanderer's Tome who has 59 people they're following, 0 people who follow them, and just sitting on that.
It's okay. For that reason, we have every single punctuation. And
so
enjoy.
You just work.
I don't remember them.
New forms of punctuation will come up as new platforms evolve. It's going to be great.
We already have exclamation after Flabbergasted. We're already we're hitting that.
Yeah. And if people want to check out the game in advance, they can also, there is a quick start guide that's out there. I want to encourage people to go check it out. All that's on the Kickstarter page, but go visit Wanderer's Tome, check out the different, why is my brain not working? Their murder mysteries and other items as well. Tons of great stuff there. Go ahead.
We are giving away the In the Shadow of the Lord, the murder mystery. It is for free. You just have to subscribe to the newsletter, and then you get a download link, and it will be a perfect game for Halloween. I just want people to play it and see costumes. It's not even about selling it.
We also have an ongoing giveaway where you can win both of our murder mysteries, which is ending, I think, in
Monday.
2 days. Monday.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's ending on Monday, so if you want to check out our social media channels, it's all over, and you can enter to win that.
Murder mysteries are the perfect fun for Halloween.
Yeah, it's a perfect time.
Love it. So I also want to talk about a couple things coming up on our channel. Tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time, we are going to be playing Slayers, which is a award-winning and award-nominated from different people RPG by Spencer Campbell. Spencer's a good friend of us here at Plus One EXP. We're super excited to sit down and play it in anticipation of the Slayers Almanac that's going to be coming out later on next month. Also sitting down with some of the development team from that to play also too. So please join us tomorrow night. If you are free, come on back, hit that follow button, let us know. Also on Sunday evening, we're going to be playing the game of corporate horror called The Company by Logan Dean. Logan has been such a phenomenal person to collaborate with to get this ready. Come on back and watch us as we engage in some of the clandestine activities of the Wuhan Butler Corporation. I am super excited to play both of these games. We have a bunch of spooky streams coming up over the next month. So we got monster hunting, we've got some corporate horror. We are playing Cozy Town next Wednesday, but I think we're going to throw some Halloween DLC in there. That's Jammy's Animal Crossing inspired RPG. and a bunch of other great things coming up throughout the course of the rest of the month, and maybe a murder mystery. We'll see what happens. But with that said, this has been Prestige Class with Fleur and Chelsea. Please go check out Flabbergasted, and until next time, class is dismissed. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.